Hey folks, welcome to the Jake and Jon Show, the world's greatest podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, here with my brother Jake, the other host.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're going to freeball it a little bit, but one thing we were talking about before it started was astrology, so I think we're going to get into that a little bit right about now. Meow.
So what's up, man? How you been doing this week?
Man, good for the most part. I've been reading again a lot lately. You know how we talked about with the heavy metal podcast that we go through spurts where we listen to a lot of metal for a long time, and sometimes we'll chill out a little bit and then go back to it. I'm doing the same thing with the reading, and I've been reading a lot about Satanism. And,
really?
Yeah, and I think they're on to something. They're on to, because when most people think about Satanism, they think about magic and rituals and goofballs and robes and stuff like that. And those people obviously exist, but if you actually read the text of the Satanic Bible, except for the last couple of chapters, which do have to do with rituals and bullshit like that, it has nothing to do with what most people think it does. Human sacrifice and fucking animals and drinking blood and all that shit. It's about self-empowerment and doing what you want to do with your life and doing what is necessary to reach your goals. And sometimes that means getting rid of shitty people in your life or possibly using someone to a certain extent. And that's a fine line, because and I would agree that using someone is wrong, but if that person is kind of a shitty person and they can get you to where you need to go, they can assist you in some way, I don't see it as a bad thing to use their services. You see what I'm saying?
Can you give me an example?
So let's say that you work somewhere and you don't like someone there that can advance your career. You don't like them at all. You don't like their ideals. You think they're a jerk off. You think they're rude. You just don't want to be around them. But if they can advance your career, you can still pretend and use them. You can call it social intelligence. You can call it a lot of different things. But when you break it down to the simplest thing, you're using that person to further advance yourself and most likely beyond their position. And I don't see a problem with that. And I think that most people will do that. If you have any type of competitive nature and you want to succeed in life, you have to learn to play the game. And all right, go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, to me, that sounds like a reasonable thing to, I mean, I guess when it gets into the kind of the nuance of the word there and what you mean by use someone, like in a work example where if you worked with somebody you just thought was a dick or whatever, or was just an idiot, but they had the ability to help you out. I think, I think what you said, kind of like playing the game. I don't see anything inherently wrong with that. I mean, I don't necessarily think I need to, one needs to be a Satanist or practice, or, read any kind of satanic book to understand that. That's kind of like a fundamental concept to me. Now, if you were using someone in a way that would harm them, I think I'm definitely less on board with an idea like that. I mean, but if you're basically, shooting the shit with somebody who thinks a moron because that person can help get you promoted, I don't think that's an inherently bad thing. But I mean, if you were doing something that was going to cause them harm in their life, or if you were really going to bust down on their self-esteem or something like that, I think that's kind of where I draw the line on that, if I understand the definition right, anyway.
Right. So the point is, I think that most people, without realizing it, are Satanists. I would never call myself a Satanist because it's stupid. Like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? But in the book, it's the basic principles to be a successful and happy person in my mind. Like, not like fighting your sexual urges. And I want to be clear about something. I'm not talking about going out and being rapey and doing weird shit. But, if somebody's with their wife and they want to try something new and it's not in the Bible, they shouldn't do it that way, doggy style, or maybe a little anal or something like that. They shouldn't fucking sit there and feel guilty about it for months and months on end and be praying for forgiveness and shit like that. It's in your nature to want to explore in that way. So, but I think that everybody, every religious person I know, for the most part, they all fall within the guidelines of what someone would call a Satanist. Because everybody, what they do is self-serving. And the best way to explain this is, of course, if someone has a child, They do what they can to take care of their child and give them the best opportunities. But when you look at it, you're doing that not just for their benefit, obviously, but because if you don't, you'll feel guilty. So in a sense, you're self-serving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It feels a little bit fuzzy to me on some of the, I guess because, by that definition, then anyone who has a job is technically a Satanist, right? Because you're not out being a disciple, you haven't given up everything you own and gone out to like spread the gospel. You have a job that you go to 8+ hours a day or whatever. That in and of itself is self-serving, right? By that definition.
Right. And again, obviously I'm not saying that I'm not a Satanist. I would never call myself that. But everybody falls within those principles, because if you break down everything to the finest detail, ultimately it is so that you feel good or you don't feel bad or you don't want to feel guilt. And so, but that doesn't mean that you don't love people and that you don't do great things for people because you want to see them smile or to see them laugh or to be happy. But ultimately you're doing that because it gives you a form of satisfaction.
Okay. Yeah. That definition, I see what you're saying. It feels really broad to me though. That could almost be all encompassing into almost anything you would do.
Exactly.
If you take it that far, if you take that down the road, is getting up and eating self-serving, is going, getting a drink self-serving because it's needed as nourishment to keep you alive. You know what I mean? To me, it feels like it's almost open-ended to where you can get to the point where you're just talking about basic human function as being self-serving. Because, naturally it is because it's in your interest to stay alive. Exactly.
And that's what I mean is everybody's a Satanist.
Is this the definition of Satanism, is to be self-serving? Is that what it is? Because I've heard in the past, I've never read enough into it ever, but I've heard people say that it's the worship of nothing. It's really, some people call it self-worship when I think it means basically what you're saying, where it's like a self-serving type of thing. Is that the basic tenet?
Yeah, I think it might be a little more complex than that. And I would certainly won't pretend to be an expert on it. But that's what it comes down to, is you're self-serving. They don't condone breaking the law or harming children or raping women or human sacrifice or any crazy shit like that. It's basically playing the game within your law system to suit your own needs because you don't have to aspire to be a billionaire or anything like that. It's whatever makes you happy, whatever brings you happiness and joy in your life. And they preach hard work. If you want something, don't complain about it and don't try to necessarily to cheat people or to shit all over people to get what you want. Like, hard work is in there, hard work ethic. And as I'm reading, again, I'm not an expert, but as I'm going over it, I just see everybody falls into this category in some way. And I think it's so interesting because how many people in the world are there that claim to be religious? We can pick one of the big ones, obviously, a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew, and there's so much in their life that is seemingly or relatively innocent that they try to fight themselves over and deny. And like if they jack off to a porno or something when they're a teenager, and then they spend months, praying and asking for forgiveness for this basic human instinct that they have. How fucking crazy is that? Just get rid of all that bullshit, because that's exactly what it is. It's 2016. We have the internet. We have YouTube. Go to accredited websites, science websites. Figure shit out. All these ghosts flying around judging you and making you feel terrible, that's all bullshit. There's nothing that has proven any of that to be true ever.
Well, let me take you back without going too far down a religious rabbit hole at the moment. So let me take you back to the idea of doing things that are self-serving within your rule system, I think is how you worded it, something like that. There's obviously association between like Satanism and things like animal sacrifice and possibly human sacrifice. Some of that shit might just be like drummed up from movies or whatever, but I suspect there's probably some element of truth there, although I suspect it's probably in a lot of cases it's people that are somewhat crazy to begin with, probably off kilter and doing these things. But is there an encouragement to say, like, let's say that my current moral code doesn't stop me from going and killing the neighbor's dog or a stray dog that's walking down the street, and I just go for a self-serving reason and go and kill that dog? Is that within the, you know what I mean? It's almost like it's just giving you a out of any kind of moral responsibility. Because I think we could probably argue that everybody has a moral responsibility of some sort of code that probably all humans benefit by, you know, just having some basic tenets. And it almost sounds like it's giving you a free pass to kind of ignore that and an encouragement to act on things that you would otherwise not act on. Even if, man, this is a weird topic because, you know, I'm a huge freedom dude, but I mean, like, I think you have to have some kind of rules around this. You have to have some kind of boundaries because otherwise, I mean, you get a lot of fucking psychos out there. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to tell me and don't need to tell you and 99% of people that it's not okay to go out and kill people. It's not okay to go out and just slay animals, but you got a percentage of people that do, and it almost feels like that's what it's targeted at.
Yeah, and I can see where this can get really hairy, and anyone can break it down to the finest level.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think if you read it, is a whole lot different than someone who's mentally unstable reading it. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, why shouldn't I go do this fucking bizarro crazy thing? I mean, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. You know,
right? And I think that mental illness. I don't think that the guidelines of Satanism is for a mentally ill person, because a mentally ill person would fall into a weak category. And a lot of what I'm reading, and again, I'm not an expert because if Satanists listen to this, well, actually, I hope they do and call in and call me a cocksucker. That'd be great. But anybody who falls into the weak category who can't see the bigger picture. So if you're just a working man, but you're kind of a sick guy inside, and you go out and kill a dog, it's not smart because it's not in your best interest, because you're probably going to go to jail. You caused all these other people grief. All these other people around you now want vengeance. That's not an intelligent move for anyone. That means if you think that's an intelligent move, you're not an intelligent person, so you would fall into the weak category. So I don't think that those people, I think that for one, they would be expelled from the Church of Satan. But from what I'm gathering, it's for people who like to see outside the box and who, again, the biggest thing is admitting to being a self-serving individual. Because it's hard to admit to that because it sounds really fucked up based off of Western society's general norms. But if you look at Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, they would all fall into the highest categories of Satanism, aside from breaking the law, because they don't condone that.
Or do they?
Well, as far as I've read on their website today, I read the whole website, is they do not condone breaking the law. They are not down with that at all.
Okay, you're talking about the Satanists, not the right. Politicians. Okay, I'm with you.
But so other than that, or any kind of crazy abusive behavior, like Bill Clinton's been accused of rape or child molestation or something like that, that definitely doesn't fall into the Church of Satan. He's just a crazy fucking narcissistic sicko, you know. But their other ideals probably do fall into those guidelines about, like the Clinton Foundation. There's obviously something very funny going on there. Donors are donating to them, and then what is it, like only 3% of that gets taxed, right? Something like that.
Oh, I'm sure it's something wacky.
Yeah, I've been reading so much lately, my fucking brain's fried from all that shit with the Clinton conspiracies. Any person, I've always noticed this, like when I was in the military, I would say that anybody who makes it to a colonel or above is usually a very narcissistic person.
Sure.
And you can see them feign emotion. They pretend to care about things. But if you're a relatively intelligent person, you can see inside of them. You can see what's really going on, and they don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about your work center. They don't care about any of that bullshit.
You remember, you know what this reminds me of, and I've kind of witnessed this a few times in my life, but you remember that Steven Seagal movie where it's got the like oil CEO guy and he's out there with like a caribou or whatever, and he's doing like an oil company commercial about, you know, how they protect the natural resources and all this. Like in a second the camera's off, he's all, fuck, these animals stink. I think there's probably a lot of truth in that, right? Because everybody's just got this huge like PR engine behind them, and they come out. It was just like Hillary Clinton. Like I believe 100% that everything she says, for the most part, is scripted. And I even saw an article today. I don't want to get off on a tangent on this, but that she possibly had what they call like a pearl in her ear during a town hall. And that's basically so her handlers can like whisper shit into her ear while she's talking. So you see how self-serving this is this need to accomplish something at using unnatural measures. It's just whatever it takes to get the job done. Because, I mean, you think about the mentality of, I'm going to go to a town hall and I'm going to talk, but I need somebody to be whispering into my ear the whole time telling me what to say. Like, how psychotic is that?
It's crazy because you're no longer representing yourself. You've presented this image to the public of what you are, but that's not really who you are. If you have a PR team telling you what to say, what not to say, how to defend, you are a shell of yourself now, and you're doing whatever it takes to win instead of actually believing in what it is that you're trying to do. And I think that once you get to that point, it goes beyond narcissism, and you start to enter the world potentially of a genuine psychopath. And I think in Hillary's case, if we look at her videos online of her behavior and some of the responses that she's given to people, like sometimes she'll have regular civilians come up to her, middle class or whatever, lower class, and ask her questions. And the way that she'll respond when no one else can help her respond correctly, it usually comes across as stupid or cruel. So, to me, this is so crazy that this is going to get fucking crazy. Okay, so people are saying that they would still vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump because they think that Donald Trump's a racist. I don't think he is. I think he's a narcissist. But if you look at it, would you rather have somebody like Hillary who has broken so many laws, has gotten so many people killed? Obviously, it's pretty certain now that she got the people in Benghazi killed. I think it's hard to deny that she was basically directly responsible for that. And then she has all the other murders tied to him. I think I said in a previous podcast that it was 19, but not just her, but her and her husband or their group.
The Clinton organization.
Yeah, they have all these mysterious suicides and these people dying. And the number is actually higher than 19. It's in the 20s. I don't remember what it was. But it's like that joke from Cat Williams. I think it was Cat Williams. And he was talking about Michael Jackson. Maybe it was Dave Chappelle. But one of them said, if somebody says the same shit about you for 10 years and it's like 20 different people, then chances are you're probably fucking guilty. You know, I believe in the court of law and all this shit, obviously. But I also believe in common sense. And I wouldn't leave, if I had a child, I certainly wouldn't leave him with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying? And if we use that same train of thought, I certainly wouldn't leave my country with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I thought about this pizza. I was like, how fucked up do you have to be where Donald Trump looks like a viable option to, or a viable alternative to you? How fucking crazy and dishonest and fucked up do you? I don't know another way to say that. Like, how fucked up do you have to be where that's just a viable alternative? And not only that, but it's getting worse every day. So this cycle has been crazy with just all the leaked emails and all. And I understand that there may be some more coming out, and these things are damning. I mean, they're damning for everybody. And I wouldn't say a lot of them aren't surprising necessarily, but they're damning. I mean, it's what everybody thinks is going on, and it's just kind of getting revealed, right?
Yeah, and think about it like this. The thing about, Donald Trump, he probably says a lot of bullshit, I'm sure. But I feel like he's so sure of himself, so confident, so narcissistic, that even if he's doing something stupid, he's probably going to tell us about it in some form. So we can catch him in the act at some point, right? Because he'll have PR teams screaming in his ear, like, oh, fuck you, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, we'll make it great again. And you know what I mean? He'll just be himself. He'll be like, fuck you. Whereas Hillary Clinton will listen to that pearl in her ear, the little earpiece. She's such a cunt. I'm not trying to bring in negative energy to the podcast, but I want to say it again. Hillary Clinton is a cunt. She's the very definition of a cunt.
You know what's weird, man, is that what we've just done is we were talking about Satanism, and talking about our current American politics is actually worse. I mean, on the scale of that, on the spectrum.
Exactly, yeah. As if you look at the guidelines of Satanism, our politics are way more evil than the Satanic Church is.
So let's get back to Satanism for a minute, because I know you've been reading lately. So tell me about. I get the idea of doing what you want to do, and I get the basic tenet of that. So tell me about the rituals. Like, what is all of this about? Because that's, for me, any idea system, this is where it falls off for me. It's like, why do you need to wear robes, and why do you need to do all this shit to just think?
Well, there's two answers to that. The first one, the good answer, it's because it's fun. The ritual in itself doesn't mean anything. It's an excuse to, you can look at it the same way as throwing a Halloween party or even a Christmas party. those are rituals in a sense. If you have a custom that you do every year, it's a ritual. It's the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
So if you, as a Satanist, have a small group of friends, because that's the way that I'm reading the website is that don't expect other Satanists to come out, oh, you're a Satanist, bro, come to my party. It's not like that. That you need to be judged, weighed, and measured before you can even fucking talk to them, before you can hang out with them and come into their home. So a ritual in this day and age, to my knowledge, it has nothing to do with any kind of weird summoning demons or talking to ghosts or any shit like that. It's probably more along the lines of walking into a room that potentially has kind of Satanistic paraphernalia. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah.
And you drink wine, you listen to the music you like, you talk, you enjoy the atmosphere that you've all created. Maybe you all listen to really heavy...
So it's a club.
Yeah, it's a club. If you study it extensively, you can see the innocence in it as well.
I guess that's what I'm curious. Like, I mean, is it any deeper than what we just talked about? Is there more to it than that? I mean, okay.
Well, I'll say that it is deeper in the sense, because obviously there's an entire satanic Bible. And so it is deeper in that sense. But if you look at the core values, the basic thing of being a Satanist, it really is that simple. It's be intelligent and be self-serving, and then be intelligent again. It's a thing that self-serving and intelligence, it's a thing that's combined. It's not two separate things, because you're acting intelligently to get what you want out of life. And it could be making a shitload of money, or it could be telling your friend that, hey man, I like your haircut. It looks good. Because you really think that, but also you get a positive charge by telling someone that you care about that they have a great haircut. I mean, it's that simple.
It's weird to me because it seems like just being a person. Like, I mean, just the way you describe it, and this is a very cursory inspection on my part, but it doesn't sound to me, the only thing that throws up a little flag for me is the idea of doing whatever you want based off of your own moral code, because that quickly jumps off the tracks with anyone who isn't of stable mind. I mean, almost immediately. So, but otherwise, I mean, all I hear is just be a human. I mean, I don't hear anything crazy about it.
That's the basic principle, is be human. Be who you are. That's in the book more than once, is that you are an animal. You're separated from the other animals in the world, obviously, by your intelligence and your mobility and your ability to move and to think and to do all these things together. But you're still an animal. You have the same instincts, self-preservation, mating, conquest, motivation, inspiration, all these things. It's the same thing as a lion trying to be the head of the pride. I forget what that's like, the alpha male of the pride. It's the same thing. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not a bad thing. If your aspirations in life are not to be the alpha male of the pride, so to speak, that's not a bad thing in itself. It's not. If you're harmless, I mean, you're just a guy just going through day-to-day life doing what you're doing, it's whatever. But at the same time, if that's what you're doing and it makes you happy, that's great. But if inside you're carrying around this sense of guilt or shame because you're living in fear and you're not following your dreams, then that in itself, it's not self-serving. That would fall into the weak category. You see what I'm saying? I know it's confusing.
I guess, so there's, I know you've said a few times there's these categories, and what are they? I mean, I've heard you say there's like a weak and strong category, and this is categorizing based on how you were applying the principle of being yourself, I mean, more or less?
Yeah. So, but think about it like this. We can empathize with a weak person, and we can help them because it makes us feel good to help them, to know that they're safe and that they have a place to stay. But at the end of the day, if you only surround yourself with weak people, eventually it's going to drag you down to a point where you're not reaching your own potential. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. So basically surrounding yourself with people that make you better. Not make you better necessarily, but people that you're inspired by, or that have qualities that make you want to be better or do better.
Yes, because that would be the intelligent move. And you hear it all the time from professional athletes especially, and from a lot of great musicians, is if they had problems early on and then things weren't working out for them, they discovered that by hanging out or spending a lot of time with successful people and removing all the negative energy from their life, they found this new fire inside to be competitive and to learn from those people. And it's not that they want to necessarily overcome their peers or be their leader, but they have that constant positive energy and successful energy around them, and it drives them to do more and more and more. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, this sounds almost like a self-help book type of, these are, to me, don't sound like religious practices per se. These are just, simple, basic psychology 101 type of things. And I guess that's what's interesting to me is like if you hadn't said the word Satanism, I would have no idea, no concept that we were talking about anything that had to do with a quote unquote religion.
Yeah, that's what's so crazy about it. It's because it's really not a religion. It's not. It's a state of mind and a way of thinking. And the basic principle is to be yourself, accept that you're a human, that you have flaws, that you like to fuck. Sometimes you indulge occasionally. And there was a good example in there about the 7 deadly sins and all that, gluttony being one of them. And okay, so pride is a sin also, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're gluttonous and you eat too much and you do it for a few months and you start to get fat, then your pride will take over another sin and say, I can't do this. I can't live like this. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I feel. So my pride is taking over, and now I'm going to lose weight and get back in great shape again. And there's something about that that's fucking awesome and super crazy.
I guess it's, to me, I guess the way you described it a few times, it sounds like it's an ideology that gives you a pass to do some things, is what it sounds like. Why all the pentagrams and black cloaks and dressing like dudes from the band Ghost? What is all of that? Why do you need to do that? I'm a Halloween guy, get all that shit. I like the dark imagery stuff some, but I've seen the dude that wrote the Satanic Bible, that Anton Szandor LaVey or whatever. Why does he look like that? You know what I mean? Like, why do you need to bring all that to have this just way of thought? Why do you need all this weird imagery and just looking like a fucking bozo? That's the only way I can articulate it.
Well, the best way, the most intelligent way, let's go back to intelligence, to bring notice to yourself, to the masses, is to have a symbol or to be recognizable so that they can see that you fit in a category. Because we talked about this before with sports teams and things like that, or the left wing and the right wing, is you have to know based on either looks or the symbol, the donkey and the jackass, or what's the elephant, is you need something like that for the rest of I'm doing these cheesy quotation marks right now, the stupid world, to know who you are, to know where you stand.
But so, let me ask you this. Why would you not choose something appealing then? Yes, it appeals to some people. I know that before somebody jumps down my throat on that. But why would you not choose something widely appealing instead of something that puts a vast majority of people off?
Right. Well, I think the reason to do that is it's a mockery of Christianity. All the things that it says not to do, you do them. So a pentagram to people, they usually associate. I don't even think that a pentagram had anything to do with necessarily Satanism, but more of paganism, right?
Don't get me lying on all. With the whole little goat guy on there and all that, three-finger goat guy or whatever.
A Christian, an average Christian, I would say, would immediately associate that with Satanism, but it's a mockery of Christianity to bring attention to how much of a mockery that Christianity is, how hypocritical it is. It's a way to shed light to that. It's like making fun of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. That's probably the answer I was looking for there, is what the purpose is. I guess that's a place where, I kind of get no joy out of that. To me, that does nothing for me at all, for you to just shit on other people. And to me, it almost seems childish. I don't need to shit on other people to improve my way of thinking. You know what I mean? Oh,
definitely.
Sorry, I know I'm being completely contrarian on this, but that's one of those things where it just doesn't, it seems like that's a piece that can just fall off and it would be nothing but better. Right?
Oh, I agree with you.
Get rid of the dogma. Get rid of your weird rituals and your weird clothes and all that shit, and keep your ideology. Because with the ideology, basically just sounds like people who are looking for freedom in a way from something, I guess from other religions. But I don't think you need to be a member of something to do that. You know what I mean? There's tons of people that do that already that we call them atheists, right? why do you need this second piece? I guess is what I'm trying to understand.
Right, I get it. And that's the thing. If you are a Satanist, you are an atheist. You don't worship Satan. You don't even believe that he's real.
Right. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to ask here is what's the point of that? Is it just to be in a club? I know I'm talking condescendingly, but is that really the point at the end of the day is to be a member of some group?
Yes. Well, this is
And I'm
complex.
talking to you like you're an authority on Satanism.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like obviously I don't know a lot. I've watched like 10 YouTube videos. I've read the Satanic Bible once all the way through, and then today I was just looking at the website because I was bored, and I don't know. I like stuff like that. I look at all kinds of religions because it makes me laugh. I want to find the faults and the flaws, and the main thing that I was trying to bring up today is I'm not a Satanist at all, but I understand what they're trying to say, and if you apply the principles from their book to most people are Satanists.
So by definition are a Satanist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think based on the way you described it, I would say that's 100% true.
Yeah, and again, it's with those stupid clothes and all that. It's I would never dress like that because I think it's ridiculous. Just like I would. Okay, to stay with the Pope for example, this guy's. Why the fuck are you wearing that? You look ridiculous.
Yeah,
the clothing. And I went to an Episcopalian church on Christmas Eve, like 10 years ago, with a friend of mine, and I went out of curiosity. And so the guy walks out, and I don't know a lot about Episcopalian, but I think it's it's some kind of spin-off of Catholicism. And this asshole walks out with a robe on, and he's got this it's like something out of World of Warcraft. He's got this chain in his hand, and this square metal box that looks like it was made in fucking medieval England. And he's swinging it back and forth, and there's smoke coming out of it, this incense. And on top of that, the atmosphere of the church in itself was fucking creepy. All the walls were that weird red velvet church color that you see from the 60s and 70s churches. And it was dark in there, but the smell coming from that incense, I was like, if a child molester or if Satan had a smell, that's what they smell like. Whatever the fuck is burning in that box and tearing up my nostrils, that's exactly what that is.
Well, I think, and that is the same thing I think I'm talking about with the Satanism rituals and everything else is because it doesn't take long for a ritual to get creepy to me. Not long at all because it's so strange. Like, what do you need to burn incense for? I get it if you want to use it like an air freshener in your house. I get it if you like the smell and you want it to help you relax while you're doing yoga or something. I get it. But when you start doing when you start swinging some kind of weird metal box with it in there, like creepily coming down a hall, or if you're, wearing basically like some kind of weird black robe, KKK uniform or whatever, I start getting weirded out by that because I just don't understand what the need for all this ritualistic stuff is. Like I don't say this to disrespect anyone's core beliefs. That's not my intent at all, but believe what you believe, but I don't think you need to have all these weird things. Like, to me, that's what always draws me to question things is like, why are you doing that? What does that have to do with anything?
I think that the answer for that is fun. So let's look back in time when you or I allegedly may or may have not smoked marijuana over 20 years ago. And if you're with a close group of friends over time, people who you might smoke with, there usually becomes a ritual of sorts. And I think...
Yeah, but I can't think... Okay, let me stop you right there, though. I can't think of one... Like, say you're smoking a joint. I can't think of one ritual that's creepy, though. Like, what... And you have to think, like, that ritual is not nearly as serious. I don't mean to stop your story there, but I'm thinking about two different things. I'm picturing, like, a bunch of guys, like, doing weird things and wrapping their joint and licking it weird or doing some weird thing
right.
Compared to some dude, like, walking creepily down a hall in some dark, like, candlelit room. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just, like, kind of a different... They're on different scales of ritual.
Right, and I think the best way to look at both of those is to add the word fun into it. Is to feel fun and to feel close to your peers that are around you and to set a tone. You're putting on a play.
Yeah. It's all like, it's like performance art almost.
Exactly. I would say that. And I would agree that it's not necessary, but I think that people get bored. And I know that there's a lot of people involved in the Satanist community that don't do any rituals, nor do they wear all black or have pentagrams hanging from their wall. They don't have any of that shit. They're just regular folks. They agree with the core values of Satanism, and then they try to surround themselves with people who agree with that. And when you look at it again, it's basic humanity. It's admitting what you really are and what you're really doing. You're an animal. You're a self-serving, selfish animal. And when people hear that, they don't like that because they just leave it at that. You're still capable of love and caring and giving to charities and taking care of the people you love and falling in love and treating your wife like a goddess and all that. But if you break it down to the finest level, at the end of the day, what you are doing is you're doing it because it brings you pleasure.
Okay. I get that, I guess. So I guess it's just the ritual thing to me is weird. Now, and I also want to say that I'm super, super happy that rituals exist because I find them fascinating and that, like, I'm generally glad when lots of things exist, even if they're not something I do or participate in or anything, only because I think those are definitely the things that make life interesting. Because to me, the idea of acting like a human isn't that revolutionary, but doing it, like, I always want to know, like, why are you doing the other thing? You know what I mean? Like, your core idea, okay, I get it. I understand that in 5 minutes. What are you doing the other shit for? That's what I'm trying to understand, because that's the thing that's on a different plane. That's not just a piece of psychology or a way of thinking. That is something, you're doing that for a different reason, you know? And I get it, maybe if it's a party thing, but sometimes I feel like it's probably a little deeper than that. Like they're doing that to try and feel close with something and maybe not just their friends. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say that if you're a sane and logical person, you recognize a ritual for what it is. You're having fun, you're setting a tone. Maybe there's a little weed, a little alcohol, a little wine involved, and you're having fun with your friends. You're having the Renaissance Festival in your basement. That's what you're doing. If you're a true Satanist, you don't believe in any of this supernatural bullshit, magic potions or anything like that, because it's nonsense. It's scientifically, at this point, proven to be complete bullshit. And if it's 2016, I mean, I don't think that they're ever going to discover that it's real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Well, let me take this conversation. Yeah, because, man, we're almost 40 minutes in. So we billboarded we're going to talk about astrology a little bit. And I would argue that there are probably no bigger Satanists than people who claim to be astrologers and palm readers and such.
All right. Yeah, so
if there was ever some self-serving bullshit, I think that's it.
Oh, for sure, they're scam artists, and I've gone to a palm reader before, or psychic. I guess, is it the same thing? I don't even know.
Was this like and I'm definitely air quoting this. Was this a real psychic? Or is this one of the places where they allegedly take themselves seriously?
Yeah, well, it was at the Texas Renaissance Festival, and okay. There was an older woman there. I'm guessing she was the teacher of the young ladies, and she was a beautiful young blonde woman, probably in her early 20s, and I was hoping to get the old lady because at least she could probably bullshit better. Yeah. But she took somebody else. So I gave my $20 to the blonde girl, and we sat down, and she started like running her finger over my palm, the lines in my hand, and just telling me this bullshit. But obviously I thought it was bullshit from the start, but the first thing is when somebody is telling me they're a professional at something and they can't articulate their thoughts, because this is a profession where you need to be able to speak well. And she's stumbling over her words and saying words incorrectly, like she was an idiot, basically.
Okay.
And so I asked her questions about my life, and they were all wrong, completely wrong. And I just kind of nodded my head and smiled to go with it to see where this is going. And then at the end, she's trying to sell me these fucking crystals and these candles and this wax and all this shit. And it's like $100 for the crystal, like $60 for the wax.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, this is obviously a scam. What kind of just sick, lonely person falls for this? I pity the person that falls for that, but obviously millions of people do.
I would be almost more apt to go to a palm reader at the Renaissance Festival, because I feel like at that point you're talking to an entertainer that is, of course, it's entirely possible that they don't think of themselves as an entertainer, but that's the next thing. Like, why does it cost $100 for a crystal that I can get for 60 cents on eBay? Or, you know, we have all these things. So are you familiar with James Randi, the James Randi Foundation?
I don't think so.
Okay, you might have heard of him, or the Amazing Randi. He was a magician at one point.
I've heard the Amazing Randi.
Okay, so the James Randi Foundation is basically a skeptic organization, and they've had a long-running challenge, the $1 Million Challenge, for anyone who can come in and prove that they have some kind of either psychic ability, any kind of paranormal, supernatural power. If they have psychic ability, if they have, I mean, if they can truly read a palm in a provable way. They've had tons and tons and tons of people, apply and all this. And the rules are actually very simple. You have to be able to do things in a controlled environment and do it in a repeatable way. It's not that it comes to anybody's surprise, but they have never given away the $1 million. You know what I mean? But I guess where I'm going with that is what makes me fear this is and we live in Texas. Maybe this doesn't exist anywhere. I don't know. Anywhere else anyway. I don't know. But it's not uncommon for you to drive down the freeway and somehow these people manage to have lots, which I would assume are worth quite a bit of money. Freeway frontage, highway frontage. And they got some kind of like either a mobile home or a small house on there, maybe a small old house where they continue to run palm readings. And I have to think one of two things. Either A, that they were gifted that land or independently wealthy or something like that, and they were able to have that. Because, I have to assume that when you're next door to like a rooms to go, you're talking about how much money that land is worth. That either they were given that land or they're shamming that many people with palm reading and astrology books and $100 crystals that they're able to afford it, which to me is horrifying. That many people are being shammed by that shit.
Well, I know people who have gone to these psychics more than once, and I haven't had any contact with them for a while, but they actually believe the things that they're being told, and they did pay a heavy price because supposedly the woman psychic that I'm talking about is one of the best in the world. That's the thing that they told me, and it was $200 a person for like 45 minutes, and there was 3 of them that went. So that's $600 in less than an hour right there. Not to mention, as you said, the books or candles or incense or whatever bullshit she was peddling. And so if you have customers like that, I'm guessing they usually come in the evening after work, a lonely, desperate person. Mm-hmm. Like you've seen that meme on Facebook. It's the single female section at Target, and you see the sign and it says wine, cat food, and frozen meals on there. Like that's probably, from what I gather, I know guys go too, but what I gather is women tend to be more into that from what I've seen, and it's usually, and I think that it's probably that type of person or somebody who's experienced a severe loss in their life and they're really lonely.
Well, I picture this as being the same type of people, like guys that go and hang out at strip clubs and like constantly are giving gifts and stuff to the stripper. People like they feel like they've made some kind of connection and doing that. And I feel like a lot of times it's sad situations, like somebody who's lost a loved one or something like that, and they're in there, and these people are like, they claim to be like a medium or they're mentalist is what they are. They go in and they try and get enough information about you to be able to make some reasonable claims, and then at that point, and you have to think about that too. Like, if you were in this heartlessly for money, it wouldn't be that hard to find out, especially with the internet, tons and tons of information about people, especially if this was like a repeat customer, right? You could get on the internet and find out all kinds of small facts because there's tons of videos out there, man. You can get on YouTube and watch this. So when these people are talking, you'll notice that the customer is in there. The customer will ignore all the shit that's wrong. Anything they say it's wrong, they'll ignore that, but they'll latch onto that one thing that they say is right. It's a crazy phenomenon, is that people will latch onto that one thing and ignore all the other stuff that is just absolute craziness and bullshit, right? And this is an art that's been going on forever. Like the mentalists that have been at like variety shows and stuff like that forever. This is a known art. It's well practiced. You can look at it online. This is what these people are doing. For instance, and this is a religious case, but I feel like it's almost the same thing. And man, I'm pissed off. I can't remember the name of this preacher. What's the name of the religion where they like put hands on people to heal them? And
a faith healer.
Yeah, he's a faith healer, like a Benny Hinn type of guy. But this is before that. So this is where
like a Pentecostal.
Yes. They were like praise Jesus and all that kind of stuff, right?
Tongues and all that.
Yeah. Where it's just there's a lot of theatrics in there. So. But James Randi was involved with another one, and this is on YouTube, and it's probably the most telling thing I've ever seen. So this guy goes up, he's a faith healer, and like he'll go up to people and say they're in a wheelchair or something. He'll go and touch them and have them walk like 3 steps and this kind of stuff. Well, the Amazing Randy and his homies, man, are geniuses. Basically, they went in there with a scanner or a radio scanner, and they picked up the frequency of his wife reading the prayer cards to him that they filled out on the way in to her husband, who's got a little bug in his ear. So he's like pointing around somebody, and they have them all laid out in like perfect seating, right? Like, so they coming in, I think this is how that works. You get a specific seat. So they would have your prayer card with all your personal information tied to what seat you're in and all this kind of stuff. And then basically the wife was back there telling this dude details about, oh, you have arthritis, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's 100% accurate information that technically he shouldn't be able to know, but he does because, it's all bullshit. So, but he was able to get so much money, and he's on TV and huge influence. You look at the size of those crowds for something that is clearly, like, to me, this is evil. This is just deep, dark evil. And there's so much of it out there. There's so much bullshit. There's books about it, and it's all based off, the mentalist tricks. These are all like carny tricks is what they are. That, and then confirmation bias. It's you reading something and then finding some way to apply it to your life. Like, it's something you believe about yourself. So you think, oh, naturally, that's true, right? And if you think about that, and if you read about what confirmation bias is, that's exactly how it works. Astrology is a art form built on confirmation bias. It is designed to make you, because like just about everything about anybody is in every horoscope. And I don't know all the ins and outs of all the different facets of astrology, but it's always going to be the case that there's some truth in almost all that, because as most humans, we all have very similar traits, Yes, we're vulnerable. Yes, sometimes we're loud. Sometimes we're, everybody is. Some of us more than others. But like, let's say that you happen to read one that says, you're going to have a wild weekend or something like that. And you just happen to be going on vacation this weekend, right? They're like, oh, they fucking nailed it. But it's the same thing where you may have to ignore a few other things in there where you're like, well, I don't know if that really makes any sense, but I guess it's true because this one thing was. Anyway, I'm rambling on about that, but these things it just drives me crazy, dude, because I feel like people are getting taken and there's just nothing to it. I think it really truly is that empty, and it's sad because it's often, not always, but often taken advantage of people who have had hardships in their lives and just preying on them. To me, that's the deepest kind of evil you can have.
I agree with you completely. And I think that there's a direct link between all religions and psychics as well, because they're doing the same thing. They're giving you a placebo effect, because it's probably pretty rare that a psychic is going to tell you something negative. Or if they do, it's going to be followed up by something positive, because they need you to keep coming back. They're like drug dealers. They need you to keep coming in there. And I find that a church is exactly the same way. And now I know a lot of religious people, and I think that their hearts are genuinely good and in the right place. But at the same time, there's that chink in their armor, and they're foolish in a way. And you can see that in other parts of their life, in business and things like that. They need that placebo effect to carry on, because they're living in fear of the future. So if you go to see a psychic, you want to either talk to dead people or know the future, or both. It's probably usually both, right? So if you go to a church, what do you want to do? You want to know the future, and you want to talk to dead people, to spirits, to ghosts, to Jesus, to God. I guess God's not dead. I mean, I don't really know how that works, but Jesus died, right? And if you're Catholic, you want to talk to all the saints that died. And it's sort of the same thing. But if you stand back, and let's go back to Satanism for a second, and you live your life, if you accept the fact that you're an animal, and you use science and common sense as your guide, it becomes impossible for you to be a person of religion, because it makes no sense. It's not the intelligent move to make. And, again, and I think I've said this 3 times, I'm not a Satanist. And I think that goofy costumes and rituals are stupid, because they're goofy, I mean, if it's an innocence and good fun, whatever. I mean, I go to the Texas Renaissance Festival sometimes and dress up and drink, and I watch all the theater stuff. And there was a year I dressed up as Braveheart, and I was fucking screaming Braveheart.
Well, I think that's different though, because I think it's something of a religion. It has to be, it's kind of like a core tenet of your life, whereas going to a festival and dressing up isn't, that's kind of like getting dressed up for a costume party or on Halloween or something. To me, I think it's different when has something to do with your way of life. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I understand completely what you're saying, but I meant more the costume dressing up thing is to the rituals that are tied to Satanism. But no, I agree with you.
Well, and maybe I just don't know enough about it, because maybe it is more the same thing. Maybe it is just them getting up and riffing and just being goofy. I don't know. I mean, I always assumed it to be more serious than that, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just people drinking beer and being goofy.
Yeah, well, that's my basic understanding, is that when people go outside of the realm of intelligence and they may sacrifice a rabbit and draw shit on the wall with blood and stuff, that's when you're going into stupid territory. You're looking for a shock factor to shock the people around you, or you're displaying that you are not a mentally stable person. Because in my mind, if you're killing something just to kill it, you're not a stable person. That doesn't necessarily apply to like maybe a cockroach or something, but
yeah,
to like if you go out and you kill somebody's house cat, you have an issue. That's not normal. It's not good. You're not helping yourself in any way by doing that. It's just sick behavior.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess those are all the pieces where some of it kind of just is strange to me, because there's that instant association, whether it's right or wrong, and it just seems like that should be completely disavowed and just wiped from the ideology if that's something that's not condoned. You know what I mean? Like, because that's where I get into that fuzzy territory of, okay, so you've basically wiped away your moral boundaries to make yourself happy and do whatever you want. Where are the lines, though? You know what I mean? Because like, I guess this almost sounds like like libertarianism, but a religion almost, but without any boundaries, right? Politically, like if you're a libertarian, the basic tenet is, I don't really care what you do as long as it doesn't impact my life. I mean, that's a very, very basic tenet of it, but you still have a constitution back there to kind of set some ground rules of what's acceptable. You know what I mean? Where as I listen to you talk about Satanism, I feel like it's kind of the same thing, but it's missing those ground rules. So it's kind of open to interpretation of whatever you think happens to be the right thing to do or the acceptable thing to do.
Right. I 100% understand what you're saying, but I think, again, it comes down to our basic instincts of self-preservation, but also we're naturally pack animals that turned into, because we need each other to survive. It makes it, I mean, you could live by yourself, but you probably go insane and eventually you would die because no one could help you when you were in danger, right? So if you're in a pack, which eventually turns into a small civilization, which turns into a large civilization, then a nation, you know what I'm saying? Is you have to make the intelligent decisions, regardless of, even if you're kind of a sick person or you just have a jaded heart, a blackness in your heart, you have to make the right decisions to flow well in that society to have a prosperous life. Because if your idea of a prosperous life is to go and kill animals and to cause harm to other people that are within your society, eventually, for one thing, that's going to come back on you and someone's eventually going to stop you. But also, if your dream is to do that and then to become incarcerated and to enjoy that, you're not a mentally stable person. So you wouldn't fit into what a Satanist guidelines would be. You see what I'm saying?
I guess. And I'm being devil's advocate on Satanism here, which is really strange. But so let's assume that the leader of one of these groups has a much looser moral code than even the rest of them. And I know this is an extreme case, but I mean, look at like what Hitler did, right? Where you're able to make an entire nation of people hate a race of people or something like that. Or, I mean, it seems plausible to me that this higher power guy, the guy who gets up on the podium and talks that everybody looks up to, has enough influence to start chipping away at that over time. And I'm assuming this doesn't happen on a large scope because we would already hear about it. But I'm just thinking, like, in general, though, if that doesn't exist, it doesn't take much for especially weak-minded people to have some guy up there yapping, your town crier at the podium up there yapping and starting to change people's minds on what's acceptable and what's not.
Oh yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I think it's not to hate. It's to educate. I don't see that there's a sense of hatred in Satanism. I don't think that they necessarily hate Christians. I think what they hate, it's not the people, it's this ideology of
though they feel repressed, I think is what it is, right? I mean, they feel like they've been repressed for a long time and stopped from doing things that they feel like they have natural instincts to want to do.
Right. It's more of trying to free people of basing their lives off of lies. And I don't have a problem with that. You have people who live their entire lives off of lies and off of fighting off all of their natural instincts. And again, it's very important that we remove the mentally ill from this conversation. We're talking about an average, relatively intelligent person, which makes up, I would say, most of the world, right?
Yeah.
That's the person that you're speaking to. You're always going to have outliers. You're always going to have crazy motherfuckers. They have chemical imbalances. They were tortured all their entire lives, and they can't be helped. Or if they can, it's years and years of therapy, and they may need to be locked up or whatever. But we're not talking. We're talking about the masses and changing the minds of the masses to think more objectively, to be honest with yourself about what you really are.
I guess I'm still thinking too much about the religious aspect of Satanism. Because, I mean, like, what you're saying there is basically, in my mind, no different than somebody like Sam Harris or something like that. Because, I mean, I guess in a Christian's definition, he is a Satanist. But I guess I think of him as, like, an atheist, one of the new atheists, the Four Horsemen or whatever that comes out, and I would say is not a hateful guy at all. I imagine, or from what I know of him, seems to have a pretty decent moral code, and it seems to be a pretty decent dude in general. But, he's adamantly against religion, right? So I think he's just coming out a different way, where to me seems like a more approachable way to do the same thing, than all the robes and imagery.
Right. So, well, if you look at, I believe it's, is it Anton or Antoine? Anton seems kind of pretentious. Maybe it is Anton.
Or talking about Anton LaVey?
Yeah, Anton LaVey. There's a video on YouTube. It's his daughter and her boyfriend, and they're being interviewed at a church. I believe it's a Christian church, a big one that's televised. And it's one of the big name preachers. This is back in the early 90s, probably, maybe mid 90s. And the person who's attacking and seemingly hateful is more so the preacher, and it's not them. When you hear them talking, you could compare them to Sam Harris. It's a very objective thought process, a kind voice, direct, really, really excellent articulation, great public speakers. And when you hear them, they're dressed in black and things like that, but they're also young. And I think that, again, this is so complex, but if you look at heavy metal and all this kind of shit, the kind of metal that uses props that are made basically to piss off Christians, right?
Yeah.
So, and they may not be PhDs like Sam Harris or neuroscientists, but in their mind, they're using that to shed light to the lies and to bring attention to the issue. And so these people who are on stage, Anton LaVey's daughter and her boyfriend or husband, they have sort of that dress on. It's more of the more mature look, goth look, black suits and a black dress with black hair, that type of thing, instead of a Marilyn Manson shirt and torn jeans.
Yeah.
But they probably grew up in that music culture. But again, there's people who dress all kinds of ways, like Bill Nye, the science guy. He wears the big tie, the big goofy bow tie. That's not necessary, but it's part of his character now, and people remember him not only because he's a very smart guy, but because of the way that he chooses to dress.
Yeah, it kind of trademarks it. Sure.
Right. And as humans, we recognize symbols, and we recognize symbolism, and the way in groups, we tend to naturally put things into groups. And it just kind of falls into that. But a good question for you, and I'm not trying to mess with you, but
come on.
If you're, let's just say that you're a Satanist, and you're like, okay, this is fucking stupid. I don't want to wear all the black shit. What is the best dress code? Is it to choose the most generic form of dress that could possibly not put you in any group?
I don't think you need I think that's already thinking too much about it. Like, in my opinion, like, if you're going to do something, I don't know that you need any special garb to do it. Just dress how you would dress. I mean, you have a good point. I mean, I understand what you're saying that, people dress however they want, and I'm in full support of that. You know what I mean? But it's when you use it as part of your messaging, I guess, is to me, it just seems unnecessary, right? And it's a strange way to do it. And I guess that's okay though for what it is. And it is what it is. It's the message is different. It's and like you said, I think it's specifically designed to be offensive to Christians. So, I guess that's part of what it is. So maybe there's not a better way to dress. I guess it just depends on what they're actually trying to achieve, right? I mean, are they trying to achieve it for themselves? In which case, maybe that's it, right? It's self-serving. Maybe they're not doing it for anyone else. They're not doing it to prove anything. And that's cool too. I actually understand that better than if you're using it as a way to try to evangelize your message by dressing that way. Does that make sense?
It does. And I know that neither of us, obviously, we're not fans of groups and uniforms and things like that because we don't feel like it's necessary. I mean, even if everybody in the Satanic Church dressed like Sam Harris, like kind of that kind of casual, cool doctor look, I think that they would still be opposed just as much. I think that they would. What's that saying? It's the devil's greatest trick is that to make you believe he never existed, or like when the Antichrist comes, it'll be the person that you don't think it is. It'll look like somebody like Sam Harris, who looks like a responsible, loving, successul guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. We got deep on that. It's a complex topic.
Yeah, and I know I kept bringing up the way they look, and I don't know why necessarily, but to me that part of it, I guess it's because the message to me is so on the surface benign. It's not. To me, it's not all that interesting. It doesn't sound that much different than what most people realistically do already. And I'm talking about people, even vast majority of religious people live like that, I think. And I don't find that interesting. And that's why the next thing that hits me immediately is the imagery and the look, right? It's like, why are you doing that? Like, I get your message. I get what you're trying to say, but why do you look like that? So, and that's the same for a lot of things though. I agree, like, with like the way the Pope looks and stuff. Like it's only because I don't really understand why you're doing that. You know what I mean? And maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's documented somewhere. I'm ignorant of that too. But that's the parts that I find the most interesting is like how did your rituals form and what do they mean? And I say this with genuine interest. I'm not being condescending. It's just like, what are you doing there? And because I want to understand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
I look at this more like more like an academic, I think, because I'm really just more interested in what are you doing and why are you doing it. And yeah, it's just weird, man. I love looking at all the different religions too. I mean, I haven't paid much attention to Satanism at all, only because to me it's just kind of been kind of a laughable thing in the background. I mean, in my opinion, but it sounds a whole lot like the way my basic understanding works is that, it's just kind of a self-serving secular humanist type of deal is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that there's two reasons that it interests me so much. And the first is because I agree with most of the things that I read about it, because it has nothing to do with being a devil worshiper. It's just common sense. And, that's all it is. It's, and admitting to what you really are. But, also, I like things that are controversial. And I think that, it's funny when I read about it and I find out about something, like if I read the Quran or however the hell you say it, and then I hear people making up all these lies about, I mean, let me make something clear. I'm not down with any of that shit anyway, but you see people making these exaggerations of what it supposedly says in that text, and people just tend to do that. But Satanism is even worse than Islam, right? I would say that it is overall, as far as the masses are concerned, and that's why it interests me.
Just on perception?
Yeah, on perception,
yeah.
Right. Not necessarily on deeds, because obviously the extremists in the Islam community are obviously the worst on earth right now. But just generally speaking, because a lot of religious people, well, all religious people in the Christianity sector, they do believe in demons and all this crazy shit. And so to them, it's frightening and it's terrifying, and they come up with all this crazy shit. And I told you I bought Marilyn Manson's book last week, and I actually finished the whole thing. I finished it last night, and there's these quotes in there and affidavits. I think that's how you say it, right? Mm-hmm. About these accusations of shit that he did, which are proven to be completely false. But they were manufactured by the American Family Association or whatever the fuck it's called. They're so afraid of him influencing their children or influencing society that they, as Christians, lie about the things that he's done to try to get him arrested or try to get him banned from their state.
Yeah, that's a really weird dynamic, man. Let's even leave them being Christians out of it, but if you're trying to do something positive and have to lie or slander somebody to get there, how fucking crazy is that? Well, I mean, what are you so afraid of? I mean, I don't think that that's so appealing that some crazy thing's going to happen. I don't see that. I don't see that. I mean, yeah, you're going to have a subset, a niche of people that come in and dress like Marilyn Manson or do stuff, but that's never going to be wide scale. It's never going to be gigantic. It just won't.
Yeah, probably not. But I think that generally speaking, that as time marches on and information flows and becomes more free to the world, is I think that you're seeing a lot more people who are relaxed in their religions. They still cling to it because they've had it in their lives since childhood. They still have a fear inside of them. But they're the most relaxed version as far as the masses are concerned that we've ever had in any of those religions. Muslims, Christians, Jews, all of them. And it's because the facts are out there. There's nothing that supports any kind of spirits or that praying works or any of that kind of shit. It's just that life is life. You're a person. The universe does not give a fuck about you. You're an animal, and you have to look out for yourself. And I think that people are starting to accept that. I think it's going to be another 100 years probably before we see widespread atheism. And then, as I said, I think it was the last podcast where everybody becomes a gray, an alien, where the only objective in life is learning and discovery, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying there. You and I don't think are on the exact same plane with some of that necessarily, but I wonder if, I don't know, because I feel like that there is, and I'm not going to get too far into religion on this, but I feel like that there are unknowns. Like, let's just talk about space on a very rudimentary level. Like, you can assume there was a Big Bang or something like that. And you can look at what some quantum physicists think about the way that things were formed, and that's pretty shaky. I would not feel comfortable at all. I would never feel as comfortable with somebody like Lawrence Krauss coming out and saying, this is how something came from nothing, and feeling with full conviction. I've listened to what he said, but I don't see how you could come out and say that definitively enough to base your life around it. Like, I'm not comfortable with that at all, because there's too much room for error. Like, I feel like next year that theory could completely change. Like, something could disprove it. So I'm open to there being more to it. You know what I mean? I don't know what that is necessarily sometimes, but I'm open to the idea that that's possible, because I don't feel like we know everything, and I don't even know what that is, but I'm open to the idea that it exists.
I agree with you. And, I look at it like this. I guess you could say that I'm agnostic, but at the same time, I'm atheist. And I want to look more towards the actual definitions of what those are. And so if I'm an atheist, I can say with certainty that there's no such thing as pink unicorns, because there's absolutely zero evidence that there is, right?
Okay.
So I can say that with certainty. And if I can do that, then I can say the same thing about gods, ghosts, and demons. There's absolutely zero evidence that any of those things exist, that there's a creator. So I can say with confidence that they do not exist. However, the agnostic side of me is open to possibilities, but you have to give me really, really detailed, precise evidence that there is a creator, or that there is a collective conscience, or any of the other very entertaining and wild ideas about how we came to be. I'm accepting that those things are out there. I'm not saying they're not, but at this state in my life, if you can't show it to me, I'm not going to even entertain that it's real unless you scientifically prove to me that it is. That doesn't mean that I won't maintain an interest in a possibility. It doesn't mean that, but I'm not going to entertain the idea of any type of spirituality shit until I see it for sure. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely get all the ideas on it. And I guess my question is, and I'm sure I catch flack with this from everybody, is you have the Earth, which is obviously this just marvelous thing, this incredible thing. If you think of the way just the ecosystem works, and the way our atmosphere works, and all of these things, and space, which to me is just like an amazing mystery, there's a lot going on there, right? If you had kind of something created from nothing and it became that's pretty miraculous. That's winning the lottery 50 times in a row. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that has to go right for that to happen. And then not only for that to happen, but to have all the different species, and to have, and then just I'll call us a super species, right? That's one that has like the larger brain and the intelligence and all that. And I don't know. To me, there's just a lot of mystery in the idea of all of that, because there's a lot of things that work right and work together. Like I was just listening to Radio Lab the other day. Rogan had mentioned it on his podcast about the way that trees talk to each other through a network of fungus. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's just a lot going on there. And if it all happened by just some huge accident, that's just fucking amazing.
Well, yeah, I agree with that completely. And, but I also look at it as, it's a generic thing to say that I think most people are familiar with, that are familiar with atheism and evolution and all that, is that if you have, I've heard a bunch of different estimates on how old Earth is, 250 million years, 3 billion years. Let's say 3 billion. Let's just throw a number out there. If the Earth is that old, think about how much all of us have evolved since we were children, just our thought process, and how much you evolve if you lift weights. You evolve to fit your needs. And so obviously we weren't nearly as advanced back then, but humans have always been somewhat intelligent from the time that they have been able to walk on 2 feet. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it doesn't seem unreasonable at all that not only have humans evolved, but so have plants and other animals and the atmosphere. Everything evolves to what is around it, and then the weakest links die out and become extinct. And whatever is able to adapt and survive, it evolves into whatever it is now. And if that happens over 3 billion years, you get this really cool, majestic place. If you look at Earth from space, it's like the most beautiful fucking thing in the world. Or if you watch that, what was the name of that huge animal type of documentary or show that came
Planet Earth?
Yeah, Planet Earth. When HDTV first got big, that was one of the big things you would get at Best Buy, the Blu-ray or whatever the fuck it was. And you look at all these things, and it's so fucking majestic and beautiful and perfect. But that's happened over the course of possibly billions of years. You know, it took a long time to get there.
And you know, I'm open to the idea of that too. I'm not going to come out and shit on that idea ever. But to me, there's still a lot of mystery around how does that start, and why is there multiple species, and that are so vastly different, right? Like, I mean, you think about the difference between a human and a crustacean. That's not a couple of things that are a few degrees off. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge, huge, huge difference. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm open to that mystery. And I know you and I have had tons of talks on religion off air, you know, but to me, there's still a lot there. So I still remain fairly open to things and fairly non-judgmental on anything religious at all, only because I'd say, yeah, you know, do what you got to do. You can be open to it. But, you know, I only really start to get weird about it if people start doing things that are hurting other people, you know, and you get into your terrorism and stuff. I'm fully opposed to that. But otherwise, you know, I don't overly concern myself with it, what other people are doing, and have my own personal beliefs and keep them where I feel they should be.
I think that I want to make something clear is that I have many people I'm related to, people I've known for many years, people I serve with in the military that are heavily religious, and I love them and I care for them a great deal, and I respect them and I respect their intelligence, but I disagree with them on the religious aspects that they choose to follow. But it's come to a point now where if they can have a calm conversation, I'm obviously going to tone it down a little bit and not joke around as much and be more serious about it. Then I'm like all in. I want to talk about it. I want to hear what they have to say, because for one thing, I can learn something. But also, and this may be kind of a wicked or selfish thing to do, is I'm looking for, more than anything, I'm looking for flaws in their argument, and I always seem to find them. And I don't think that it's because I think I'm super intelligent. I think it's because the conversation starts to go into circles when it comes to facts and to science. There's just nothing there. And what you're left with is back to the Satanist idea, is that you're a self-serving person. You need this religion in your life to bring you comfort and to bring you joy and to bring you forgiveness and hope and to have eternal life. You need that, and you're self-serving in doing so because you're scared or you're afraid or because you've been around it all your life and that's just the way things are. And so on that note, I can't get with it. Like I said, I love those people and I do respect them and I respect their intelligence, but I can't ever accept in any way that any of those things are true when it comes to the actual supernatural part of those things. Now, there may be facts, times and dates and people's names and what they did some of those things are probably true. But again, when it comes to the supernatural stuff, I know it's not true. I know it's not true because there's no evidence that it is. And I can say that comfortably as an atheist, as I use the unicorn example, but at the same time, as an agnostic, I'm still open to the idea that I don't know everything because I know nothing. I know less than 0.01% of anything. I know way less than that.
Yeah, and I know exactly how you feel, and I think that's the reason that we've been able to have these interesting conversations in a rational and calm way. Today's episode was no exception. I wasn't expecting Satanism when we came in. We actually barely even talked about astrology, but I think this was a lot more fun. So looking forward to what we have in some future episodes. You got anything else to say? Because I think we're almost an hour and 20 minutes or so. So probably going to wrap it.
No, I don't have anything else to say about it because I feel like this topic is going to come up again probably more than once. But I just want to say, and I'm not trying to get all scoodly-doo or mushy here, but I'm happy that I have someone like you, my brother, in my life that I can have these conversations without their, because obviously there's certain things that we disagree on or slightly disagree on, but it's always a calm conversation and it's fun. And sometimes when you challenge me, I learn things, and I just appreciate it because it's fun, man. And you're one of, I don't know, maybe 5 people in my life that I can have these fun conversations with, and I'm just happy about it, man. But no, I don't have anything else to say other than I believe our completed podcast art should be ready by tomorrow. And I'm fucking amped. I can't wait to see it because, as we said before on a previous episode, we got to see the I don't know if I want to call it a rough sketch, but maybe it was like 60% done. We got the concept. It looked really good, and we're both really fucking excited about it. And I can't wait to see that shit. But before I forget, I want to make sure to remind our listeners we have a number that you can call in and you can leave us a voicemail. And today's episode of all episodes would be a great one where if you feel like our facts are way off, especially on Satanism, please call us and tell us what we did wrong. And the number is 804-557-4691. And to simplify that, it's 804-JJ Show 1. And let us know what's up. Correct us, challenge us, let us learn a little bit, let us challenge you. And also, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And also Twitter, and it's Jake and Jon Show. And we have a Facebook page coming. We're waiting for the podcast art and a couple other things, and then we'll have that up there as well. Because because of our personality types and we like to have fun, we like to communicate with other people, even when we're challenged or even when we're proven wrong. It's something that's really enjoyable to us. So please don't fear that. Take part. Let us know if we're fucking up. And I think that's about all I got, man. We'll see you guys next Friday. Will probably be when the next episode comes out. And hopefully the completed artwork will accompany that.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to remind you, our website, that's where the blog is, where we post everything, and that is jakeandjonshow.com. Meant to do it last week. I'm going to give a quick shout out to listener Saul for providing a bunch of links to show content, and that was awesome, and really appreciate you listening.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to, I don't know if it's Saul or Soul. I think it's short for solipsist. Is that how you say that word?
Okay, if I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah, dude, but thanks for your feedback and listening to our episodes and all that. We appreciate it, but we'll see you guys next time.
All right, take it easy.